Whoa, hello there, boys and girls. Welcome to the Environmental Science Timeline. This is my learning stick. There are many like it, but this one is mine. Without my learning stick, I am nothing. Without me, my learning stick is nothing. So, let's get right into it with 1626. Oh, fooled you. Before 1626, there was the Native American over Jay chillin' in what we call North America. They weren't really taking more than they needed. In fact, it was part of their culture that they wouldn't take too much. Their tribe relied only on what they could survive upon. But when we came into town, came in the picture, we started taking more than we needed with our colonies. So, in 1626, our boy William Penn of the Plymouth colony made a rule against timber collection. You can't collect too much timber or strip too much bark off of a tree to preserve what we already have in our natural resources. The first law of environmental science we have recorded in American history. Moving on to 1639, our first rule against wildlife protection, for wildlife protection. Deer hunting regulations. 6 months out of the year, you can't kill deer. 6 other months, you can kill deer. It's like baseball season. Moving on to 1681, acre management. Our boy Robert Walpole said, hey guys, you can farm 5 acres of land, but that other one, the 6 acre, nah chief, you gotta leave that one alone. So now we have our first rule against acre protection, an entire area of land perfectly protected by the state. 1798, hey, what's up? Hello, Thomas Malthus on the scene. What's he talking about? That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I'm gonna answer it right now. Thomas Malthus was a philosopher who said that human population would outgrow our food production. So, he was saying that we would have too many people in the coming years and we wouldn't be able to feed them. Now, he's long dead, so he was wrong. But he can still be right in the long run. Human population right now is about at 7 billion. That's kind of a lot. But in the next 20 to 50 years, we're looking at doubling that number. That's a bigger number. 14 billion? Goodness. Are we going to be able to feed those people? Is Thomas Malthus going to be right? Who knows? That's a question for your bright minds in the future. Moving on to 1845, our boy Henry David Thoreau. This guy got all wise and went to a place called Walden Pond and started writing our first American nature writings. Now his writings would influence future writers in America and would start the environmental science movement. Not officially, that's not until a couple years later. But people really started paying attention to the natural world around them and the culture of it when Henry David Thoreau started writing. Moving on to 1872, we have our first national park established. What's her name? Yellowstone. She's still chilling out there today. Go check her out. One of the most beautiful places you can ever go to. 1892, our guy John Muir. If you've ever been to Kayakima before and you've been to a Vesper service with Mitchell Lawrence, you know who I'm talking about. If you don't, he was a Scotsman who came to America, worked with our guy Teddy Roosevelt, who we'll talk about later, and established this is what we call the Sierra Club. It is a group of individuals who enjoy environmental protection, and it would establish a culture of environmental protection in American culture to come. In the year 1900, we have the Lacey Act. It's pretty simple. You can't kill birds without paying the state. It's how we make the big bucks, boys and girls. In 1901, we have our first environmentalist president. You know him as Teddy Roosevelt. The guy was awesome. Essentially, he would later go on to establish the National Park Service. In 1905, we have what is the baby that will grow into National Park Service, the Forest Service. This is established by a guy named Pinchot, a Frenchman. The Forest Service is going to protect our national forests on a smaller scale than what we know today, but it is the baby child of what will now be known as our National Park Service and National Conservation. So, in the year 1970, we've got 3 big boys for the champions of environmental science. First on the docket, we have the Clean Air Act. Essentially, it establishes regulations for pollutants we can have in our air. Pretty cool. In the year 1970, Richard Nixon establishes the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. What they do, they're essentially the FBI, but for environmental regulations. They will investigate and try to help along people who are not following environmental regulations, shut them down maybe, help them along, but they're here, they're the good guys. In the year 1970, we also have the first Earth Day, April 22nd, another milestone for the culture of environmental science in America. In the year 1972, we have the Clean Water Act. Much like the Clean Air Act, it establishes regulations for pollution in our water for better water quality. We got a couple more big oopsie poopsies coming right at y'all, quick like. So many, in fact, I'm going to put down my learning stick here in favor of my expo marker. So in the year 1979, we have 3 Mile Island. That was the worst nuclear meltdown in recorded American history. Right in our home turf in Pennsylvania. Really terrible. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to mark it as an oopsie. That is 3 for those playing along at home. Now, in the year 1989, moving right along to the Exxon Valdez oil spill off the coast of Alaska. An oil tanker was mobbing over there off the coast, hits a reef, millions of gallons of oil start spilling out from it. Disgusting, horrible. Count it as an oopsie, that's 4. In the year 1992, we have the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. This is the first coming of the United Nations. The U.S. was also involved up in Rio de Janeiro, deciding the future of environmental science, not just for America, but for the world. But we played a part in it, which is why it's going to be in our American timeline of fun and sorts. In the year 2010, you've probably heard of it. It's the BP oil spill. Ooh, what does that smell like? You smell that in the air? It smells like another whoopsie. That's 5. Oh, shucks. Anyways, this was terrible. In the year 2010, we have the BP oil spill. 4.9 million barrels of oil spilled into the Gulf Coast. We don't actually know the environmental impact of this oil spill yet, but in the coming years, we'll know what we did. Cleaning efforts, even now, aren't going to help what we've done. So it's really just one of those things you got to look back and be like, oopsie.